We're Laura and Cindy, and you're listening to the Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry podcast, where we talk about natural horsekeeping and deepening your connection with your horse. I'm Laura, your horse care mentor. I teach natural horse management practices after working with over 200 horses and seeing how current industry standards are compromising the health of the horse.
And I'm Cindy, your horsemanship mentor, offering a proven and unique approach to creating deep connections with your horses from 20 plus years of experience, including working with wild Mustangs. If you enjoy this conversation, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us so we can get this podcast into the ears of more passionate horse people.
Today we are talking about the hoof health, gut health connection, because this is a really important thing for horse owners to understand. I want to differentiate in this podcast kind of what your trimmer or farrier is responsible for in terms of your horse's hoof health and what is actually being created by diet and environment and conformation. This time of year for us is really dry. So we see a lot of cracked hooves, and that gives horse owners anxiety. And really, your horse's hooves are not cracking because your farrier or trimmer is suddenly doing a terrible job May through September, but they do a great job all winter. Like it's not changing that much. What it is diet and environment. So your horse's hoof conformation tells a good trimmer how much of a bevel they can put on your horse's hoof wall. And the bevel is what stops it from chipping. And if they over bevel, they shift your horse's weight from bearing on the hoof wall to bearing on the sole. And then your horse will be in unimaginable pain, and you will just have no choice but to wait for that to grow back. And it's miserable for you. It's miserable for your horse. Horses often end up in shoes from that mistake when they never needed to be in shoes in the first place. And it just becomes a rolling snowball of issues. So there's a lot of pressure often from horse owners. Can you put a bigger Mustang roll on him? What can you do to stop this chipping? And I kind of want to empower you guys to realize that the chipping is really in your hands.
I want to ask a question because this podcast is your expertise. So I'm listening as one of our listeners. I'm being educated on what you're saying. And I heard you say a bigger Mustang roll. Can you tell us more about that?
The bevel and the Mustang roll, that's interchangeable terms.
Let's explain what is the bevel. I know you said that it was a roll to keep them from, but tell us more. Like, I don't know what a bevel is. Tell me what a bevel is.
So a bevel is just the finishing part of the trim where they round out the hoof wall to make it a nice smooth surface.
So that's when
so
you
that when the
see them
horse
kind
steps,
of rasping the front and taking all that old, and it looks nice and shiny and like it just got done. And they're taking it, to me, it looks like they're taking off all the rough edges, like you just trimmed your fingernail and
exactly.
you
And they pull the foot forward and put it on the stand, and they're going around and going around. That is one of the hallmark differences between a trim for a shoe, which you do not put a bevel on because you want the hoof to sit flat on the shoe, and a barefoot trim. And when Pete Ramey and Jamie Jackson and all the foundational barefoot guys came up and the Mustang roll became a thing, it took off like crazy. And somewhere along the line, people kind of lost the point of it and just started making their clients happy by putting huge rolls on horses that if your horse has naturally thinner hoof walls, they're going to have less of a bevel than a Mustang who has 1/3 of an inch thick hoof walls, and they get a huge bevel. A good trimmer cannot control the size of that. They know exactly where it goes by looking at your horse's hoof. And if beveled correctly at a 45-degree angle, half of the hoof wall width, basically, they have removed all the lever forces. If the trim is balanced and the hoof is balanced, there's no lever forces on that hoof wall that's causing it to chip. So when your horse steps, their hoof is not chipping because your horse is toe isn't breaking over properly. That is the common blaming on chips, is the bevel isn't big enough, the toe is too long. That's why it's chipping. If your horse is trimmed correct balance, left to right and toe to heel, and the bevel has been put on correctly, that is not the reason for chipping. We can put the control right back into your hands. The reason for chipping is either environmental or diet. And diet can be so complicated, but that's because our humanness wants to control everything. And it's not reasonable for us to think that we can control everything. So in this episode, I'm going to give you some ways to make diet so much more simple, putting the control back to your horse. So why is the gut related to the hoof? And this is where people get confused, because they want to feed their horse directly something that's going to make their hooves healthier. Any line of supplements out there has a foot
There's so
formula.
many out there that tell you can do that.
Yes. There is no replacement for basic good diet, good forage, and vitamins and trace minerals that are balanced to that forage. There's no replacement for it. So at my old barn where they fed a grain hay, people are feeding a ton of supplements to try to make up for the lack of the grain hay. That is never going to be as successful as feeding a correct hay. And it's so much cheaper to feed a correct hay than to spend, that little tub of platinum plus hoof stuff is like $50. Ridiculously expensive. And the scary part is when we're overfeeding nutrients to try to make up a lack, we are actually damaging our horse's microbiome by giving them too much. And then your horse's overall health starts to suffer because they're getting too much in the stomach. The stomach can't absorb it all. It's dumping sugars and nutrients that aren't ever supposed to end up in the hindgut. Then the microbiome in the hindgut that has sugar processors and all kinds of different fermenters, fungus, all the different things, it starts getting out of balance. And then inflammation flies throughout the whole body, and your horse has laminitis, and you're like, what the hell? I was trying to give him a hoof supplement, and now he has laminitis. What has happened? So in terms of how can I feed my horse for healthy hooves, which is also healthy hair and healthy joints, it's everything. You can take a very controlling, difficult route, or you can let them choose. So lots of people recommend hay testing, and that is valid, but there's huge limitations to it. The barn where I'm at right now buys about 20 bales at a time. So if I pulled a sample from those 20 bales and sent it off for testing, that hay came off one corner of that farmer's field. And that lasts, 2 months.
Well, I feed 11 horses. They go through 2 bales a day. So I buy 32 bales of hay every 14 days.
Yeah. So we're going to be out of that hay by the time my hay test results get back from whatever lab I sent them off to. And when the new hay comes from the other part of the farmer's field, even though it's the same farmer, it could be massively different results. And the reason why you're testing your hay is because you want to perfectly formulate your horse's essential vitamins, trace nutrients, or trace minerals and macro minerals to make up for the lack of that hay. But if you perfectly balance just hay, tons of horses drink water off of wells. Your water is full of minerals. So now you also have to test your water. Oh, but my horse also is out to pasture for 5 hours a day and gets some of his nutrients from there. So now I have to test my pasture soil. And I have to test my water, and I have to test my hay, and I have to put all of this together and decide on the perfect formulated mix and assume that he's going to eat exactly the same amount of hay versus pasture and drink the same amount every day, which is just not realistic. And so what's happening is people are creating these perfect mixes based on one hay test, and they are way over supplementing based on those results, and they are destroying their horse's gut health, even though they think they're doing something really good for their horse. The over supplementation, too many vitamins, too many minerals, the body can't handle it all. microbiome gets all out of whack. Now your horse's body is really mad and you have terrible hoof chipping, slow growth, unhealthy frogs. You start getting thrush. The body can't fight off infection. Problems arise and you're sitting back going, but I thought I was doing everything right. The other option is to feed them hay, grass hay. A mix is great, but orchard or Timothy, if that's all you can get, is fine. And free choice mineral block or loose minerals and salt. A well-resourced animal will make the selections that they need. If you want to get crazy into this, you can actually buy each mineral separately and put out 25 little dishes, and they will self-select based on where they're at.
Ready to unlock true freedom with your horse? Join Unbridled Freedom, our private Facebook group for women on a spiritual journey in horsemanship. We don't fix our horses, we transform ourselves. This is your space to embrace challenges, celebrate victories, and deepen your bond with your horse. If you're ready to lead with wisdom, compassion, and inner peace, join us today. Let's dance with our horses as one. The link is in the show notes below. Which is pretty fascinating. Not that I'm recommending that anybody does that, but the times that I've seen, I used to go away for the summers and study horsemanship, and we did those kind of things where we were in the heat in summer for multiple days and multiple weeks. And we did have multiple things offered to them, as well as this horseman had 900 acres and it was all horse friendly. Like even when we would gather on their veranda in the evening, their own personal horses were all loose around the house mingling with us. But he also planted a multiple variety of different grasses.
Ooh, yeah.
And yarrow and all kinds of different things on the property. And it was fascinating to watch my own horse that I had had for 8 years going around and picking different things based on different days, based on different times of the day. And he also had 200-gallon troughs of molasses water and fresh, clean water. And there were like 3 of each because there were 200 students there.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to watch. One morning, my horse could not get enough fresh water. At lunchtime, he could not get enough molasses water. And then one day, he loved yarrow. I learned he loved yarrow when we went back to Truckee. We had yarrow growing in the yard, and I would pick it for him, and he was just like, ooh, So it's hard. Not everybody can do that, what Laura's suggesting. But it's absolutely fascinating to watch them. The other way that you can witness that is if you can ever join up with anybody who does Mustang tours or manages Mustangs in the wild, and you can go observe with them. You will see the Mustangs doing the very same thing. They'll eat bark, they'll eat sagebrush, they'll eat weeds, they'll eat, it's fascinating. So sorry, I just wanted to add that.
No, yeah, it's very relevant because it's our humanness wants to control it so that it's safe. But without a battery of tests and hundreds of dollars, we could be doing more harm than good, and it's important to acknowledge this. The nice thing about the self-selection is that, when we're giving them some kind of pre-mixed something, we are creating a hyper palatable mush is what most people do. They do a alfalfa pellet or a hay cube or something, and then they put in their powders, and then they'll drizzle molasses over it or throw in carrots and apples, but they're just making it so delicious that the horse won't say no even if they don't need it. And when we back off, I am amazed at watching our horses self-select psyllium husk right now. I have been through the ringer trying to get MJ to eat psyllium husk with making it as hyper palatable as possible. And her being so skilled with her lips, she just waits until it's a big gelatinous goop in her
So
mouth
what's
and
psyllium
spits it.
husk? What's psyllium husk gonna do?
Psyllium husk is sand clear, so it moves sand out of their gut.
But I'm not sure if my horse has sandy soil. What if there's that person who's not sure if they have sandy soil? Would you still offer that to them?
You absolutely could. It's not going to hurt them. And you can ask your vet is going to know. Do you see a lot of sand colics in my area? What do you recommend? And some vets are going to say, no, we never see it. And some vets are going to say, yeah, you need to be offering that.
Another thing that you can do for yourself is get a handful of the dirt your horse lives on and put it in water, in a little container of water, or even dig deep and get, like a chunk or a dirt clod, put it in water, let it dissolve, pour it through a cheesecloth.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The sand's not going to go through. And you can do the same thing with fecal material. You can take a couple of their road apples, you can dissolve it in water and then pour it over a cheesecloth, and you'll actually see, we live on very sandy, where we are, we're very sandy, and you can pour off through that cheesecloth the poop material that's dissolved, and you will see sand collected on that cheesecloth. So
and it's really interesting because I just did poop floats on both horses because they were eating so much psyllium husk. I was like, ooh, show me what you're moving. And neither one of them was moving very much sand, but the digestive system takes 72 hours to complete. So I'm going to do another one and see, like, are we moving now? Now, it's important to know that a poop float is not conclusive. It tells you if the body is moving sand. If the body isn't moving sand, that doesn't mean there's no sand in your horse's gut.
Exactly. It also tells you that in that moment, in that
singular poop of a 72-hour cycle of your horse's gut. Right. Yes.
It's the same thing. Like, a lot of veterinarians have told people that, we need to run a fecal sample and it's negative. Your horse doesn't have worms. But through our veterinary practice, Bruce, my husband, will tell you, doesn't completely rule out that your horse doesn't have worms. It just means in that particular bowel movement, they did not pass any worms nor worm eggs. So it's the same.
And they will never pass a tapeworm.
No. Well, no.
So they have to do a saliva test.
Tapeworm segments will work their way out the rectum.
But that you are in deep doo-doo if you have that. Like, you would prefer.
You see that a lot in cats and dogs that live outside or have fleas. You will see them pass. You'll see what looks like little sesame seeds on their fur around their rectum. And that's actually dried tapeworm segments, because a tapeworm is a bunch of segments. They shed their segments. So, but now we're kind of taking a left-hand turn, but I'm fascinated, really, that your horses are choosing on their own to eat psyllium husk.
When horses hate psyllium.
Because none of my horses here on the property would eat that on their own.
I thought the same thing, but I thought, you know what? I'm committed to science. I'm putting out 6 ounces. 6 ounces gone. They ate 6 ounces a day for 4 days and then decided they were done.
Wow. Which they tell us to do it for a full week. So one of the things that, medical professions, we recommend that you do it for a period of time, because we have to take the average of 10, this typical study is 100 to 300 animals. Mm-hmm. And within that, we do a study. And we say 7 days of psyllium.
In a 30-day period. It's usually 7 days in a 30-day period.
In a 30-day period. And the reason they decided on 7 days is because the higher percentage of the case studied animals in that case study, it took that long for them to process the psyllium through their digestive tract, go in and grab that sand and pull it out.
So that's
So
like the
Laura,
high factor of safety.
right. So
Yeah.
what Laura is learning in this, how much are my horses actually instinctively able to care for them, their needs when I provide what is needed. This go around was 4 days. Now, next time, maybe 5 or 6.
Right.
And in the winter time, it may be 2 or 3. I guess it'll be interesting, and we're gonna follow this up on it. Laura is creating a really cool series here, and we didn't even know it. Because she's in the process of, she's committed to holistic care.
Mm-hmm.
And she's committed to making things for her horses the healthiest possible way based on their instinctual knowing of what their own bodies need. So it's going to be fun to
And
watch.
I'm going to shoot an x-ray of MJ's stomach this fall. Because that's how you know if you have sand in the gut, is you shoot an x-ray of the stomach. And I 100% believe that this holistic thing is possible, but I also believe, one, we need to use science to back it up, because otherwise we're just guessing. And two, if for whatever reason they're not making the self-selections, I will make the hyperpalatable. Like, there has to be a balance, but I want to take a more laid back approach than a super controlled approach. The other thing about the super controlled approach is you have to be there every day providing this. I can dump loose minerals in a bucket and know that it's going to last them 3 days and go live my life, which works better for my lifestyle. There are people who are like, copper and zinc tastes terrible. A horse will never self-select it. Our horses are self-selecting it now. So Cindy mentioned, well, what if I'm in a situation where this isn't possible? You can feed a reasonable amount of a forage balancer, not a specialized hoof supplement, a forage balancer. Vermont Plus, California Trace, Mad Barn, those are all for horses on hay diets, saying, these companies looked at tons of hay testing data across the board and said, this is what hay is usually missing, and we're providing it.
And we'll put that in the show notes, everybody, so that you will be able to check those out if you're interested.
The idea behind California Trace and Vermont Plus is that California Trace was more formulated for hays grown on the West Coast and Vermont on the East Coast. I know people across coasts who feed both and swear by it. It's probably negligible differences. The important thing is, we know hay, as we grow it today in commercial farming, is lacking some of the essential nutrients that our horses need. And that contributes to brittle, unhealthy hooves. But when we try to go the way over supplementation route, we wreck the health of the microbiome. And our Band-Aid creates a ton of problems.
And would you say, Laura, in some of those products, because, the industry believes in helping us to make the best we can for our horses, and the simpler we can, because they understand all the different lifestyles. But we're often overfeeding a lot of things and never touching some of the other things.
Yeah.
So am I hearing you that if I'm feeding, like I feed Orchard here, what works best for my herd, and they all have the red mineral blocks, except I have one pair of Mustangs that will not touch a white block, will not touch a mineral block, but they will lick the heck out of the selenium block.
Whoa.
Which is crazy, because I would not have even offered that.
Yeah, how did you figure that out?
Well, because at a lot of these Mustang rescues and Mustang sanctuaries that just have Mustangs tend to go for that block over any other block, which I don't understand. I don't understand, because you can overdose a horse.
Selenium has the most narrow factor of safety than most of the other ones. in terms of too little or too much is not good.
Right. So that's not one. I mean, when I saw all those blocks at the sanctuary, I was like, guys, you got to put some salt and you got to put some red mineral blocks out here. Trace mineral blocks is what that's called. And these two, I've had them for 10 years and they wouldn't touch either one of those blocks. And so finally I'm like, ah, and I bought one, and son of a gun, if that isn't the only one that they will eat.
And there you go in terms of their self-selection. That just blows my mind. It makes me so curious because their bodies are, genetically, they're very close to wild. They are wild genetics. And maybe have we depleted our rangelands of selenium much less than we've depleted our farmland, and they actually have a higher tolerance and a higher need?
And it might be areas, because when I was
Yeah.
asking the ones at the sanctuary, like, you guys, that's not really a safe block to be free feeding. And they were saying the veterinarians here say that our ranges are depleted in selenium. And I'm like, but they were eating those. I mean, they were going to those in the sanctuary. And these two who were on the range till they were 3, they do go for it, but they also get orchard,
Right.
I kind of veered off on that topic because what I'm wondering in what I'm hearing you say is I'm feeding my mineral block, my trace mineral. I have my white smaller blocks because most of my horses don't go for that. They go for their trace minerals, and they get a good quality orchard hay. Do I not need to be giving them
Nope.
other supplements?
That's it.
So we're wasting a lot of money, and we are creating imbalances by thinking we need to do this because, like any species, including humans, we're encouraged to overdose ourselves.
Yeah.
And our cats and our dogs and our horses on supplements.
Yeah. I just hold the personal belief that health comes from real food, not powders and potions. And I say that all the time. I personally take a multivitamin and drink matcha tea. And that's it for my powders and potions. Sometimes I'm better at eating my vegetables than others. And I feel a lot better when I eat my vegetables. But it's just rang so true for me that I'm like, why wouldn't it ring true for them? And the scary part is, if you've been giving your horse a huge regime of oils and powders and thises and thatses for a long time, what you're basically having to do is overfeed because the microbiome has become so unhealthy that it can't absorb nutrients correctly. And you have to roll it back and allow the body to heal. And sometimes that looks like some weight loss, which freaks people out. And then here comes the powders and the weight gain, the amplify, the whatever comes back. And then people feel really hopeless that I'm in this horrible situation where I know this isn't the best thing for my horse, but I have to keep giving it. And so everybody's horse is going to respond differently, and everybody's going to have different emotions on it. MJ's counterpart, Rain Man, is thin, but he is not dangerously skinny. Like, we can see his ribs. He has some loss of top line. He has overdeveloped hamstrings and underdeveloped glutes, but he's not getting any worse. We are taping him every week, taking photos every week. This is really important that you don't let yourself get in your head about what you're seeing, and you collect data. You want to get your horse in front of as much just grass hay as possible before adding other stuff in. If you find that they're in front of loose, not in a hay bag, grass hay all day long, and they are still losing or not gaining, you can add in a little bit of alfalfa. You get to kind of, I would say, work with your vet. I never want to tell someone who feels that their horse is skinny to just hold the course, because you have to decide and use your intuition and feel out your horse. How much do I hold the course versus I intervene? But there are a ton of great forage-based products, rice bran, pellets, things that you can do to add to get their calories up that isn't grain and isn't powders. And it takes about 6 months for the microbiome to heal. And then you're going to see. Suddenly my horse is thriving on his mineral block and his hay. And my life got so much easier.
But so many of our listeners are in boarding facilities and all of that is completely out of their hands.
Right. You can get creative with that. If your horse is in a pasture with other boarders, you can send them this podcast episode. Say, hey, I want to put a mineral block out for our horses. That's the thing. Mineral blocks are cheap. You could provide a mineral block for 10 horses and probably be paying less than what you're paying in supplements. Are you guys okay with doing this? Maybe you buy it this time, you buy it next time. You can try that. Then, if you can't, you're going to go to every day, I'm going to give my Vermont Plus, my Mad Barn, or my California Trace in a little bit of forage pellets. And that's the more controlled option. Now, it's really tough if you can't get them in front of hay. I'm just coming off of it. For 6 years, I lived it with MJ. And the changes in her in just 3 weeks are astounding. They get loose hay morning and evening and always have hay in a hay net. So again, if you can talk to your barn owner, hey, can I pay you $25 a month more? Can everybody in this pasture pay $25 a month more so that when we're there, we can stuff a couple hay bags and throw them out to them? That might be an option and it might not. I also, for 6 years, showed up whenever I possibly could and gave my horse lunch. And it wasn't perfect, but she was okay. And I think it's important to know that you're looking, like I stopped looking for a better opportunity. I settled and decided this is as best as I can do. And then MJ started deteriorating a little bit. Things changed with the baby. I started looking again. And it was amazing how possibilities opened up and I got more of I started thinking more creatively. I started being willing to collaborate more, and things happened because I opened my brain and said, hey, I want to do things differently. So I don't want anybody to listen to this podcast and feel hopeless. I completely understand if you're in a tough boarding situation and you feel like your back's up against the wall and you're doing your best. And you know what? Your horse is getting fed and your horse is loved, and there's a lot of horses worse off. But keep your brain and your heart and everything open to change where you are or another place that's better.
And if nothing else out of this podcast, you don't know what you don't know till you know it. And so when we don't understand what we've seen, but we know that it's not right, or our farriers telling us, or we're seeing the chips or whatever, your horse's hoofs, you can look at your horse's hoof and have a gut feeling like that looks good, or that looks kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't look like it used to be shaped, or it just looks, its color is different, its texture, it's different, it's got a groove, whatever.
It's stinky, it's crumbly, it's
what we're learning.
Or if your
today,
farrier is just saying like he could never be barefoot, it's not going to work. That might be a nutrition.
Right. So what the takeaway for this podcast today is that what's going on in their stomach, in their gut, can be reflected out through the hoof. And if you have any questions, get on our Facebook page, Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry. I know this. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yes.
And ask Laura questions.
Yeah.
Because she is all about educating, and she's got some really cool freebie handouts that you can get from her and answer the questions, and she can help give you some suggestions. And soon she's going to have this whole amazing thing that you can do to get your horse on the right track, following what she right now is practicing and learning and perfecting with her own horse. So she is living it right now so that she can turn around and help empower everybody else.
You are in more control of your horse's hoof health than you think you are, even if you're in a tough situation where you don't have total control. do your best. Small changes can make a huge difference. And we are absolutely here to help. Always want to empower you guys to know what's going on.
Yes, always. This has been fascinating, Laura. I know that when I listen to this, I'm going to have some more questions, and I bet our listeners will too. I am really excited about following this journey with you that you're taking MJ and Rain Man on. It's got me thinking about, I mean, I don't give my horses a lot of supplements. I give them, like Bugzo to help with the flies. And I do this selenium, that sand cleanse every 30 days. But yeah, now you've kind of got me curious once we get relocated on talking to you about what more I could be doing differently. Because I do have some horses that have great hoofs. Mustangs have great hoofs, but not all of them. I have some that have great hoofs, but I have some that don't have such great hoofs. Or all of a sudden, their hoofs aren't as good as they used to be. And I haven't changed their diet or anything, but, like Laura is finding out and shared today, not one size fits all.
Right.
So I have 11 horses, and for the most part, they're all pretty healthy. Some are fatter than others, and I have easy keepers and hard keepers and same pastures. So that's a constant juggle. But what this podcast episode has done for me, Laura, is it's helped me realize that there are some things that I could be doing differently.
Awesome. And you can try it, you can try it. And if in 3 months nothing has changed, you can try something else. We get so scared of making changes because we think we're going to make it worse. But if you're locked into your horse and in tune, you're going to know before, we have anything catastrophic happen. You're not going to let your horse go down to a body score of 1 because you're so determined that all they're ever going to eat is hay.
But what's super exciting for me, and I hope for those of you who are followers of our podcast, today we have all been introduced to a direct source of somebody who can help us. It's Laura. But she's also has an in-depth consultation program that you can actually hire her and send her videos and get really a deep dive into what's going on with your horse. So that's a shameless plug for Laura that I do with pride and honors. So yeah, this has been very cool, Laura.
Well, thank you very much, Cindy. And we got to go because Cindy said that she has to be off to feed her horses 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, because I got a dinner date tonight.
Have so much fun. That's good.
So this was awesome, and I can't wait. We are going to do follow-ups for a while on this and see eventually, maybe she's going to even share pictures.
Yeah, I'm doing case studies on all of this, so it will be published.
So if you have any questions about the topics covered in this episode, send us a message on our Facebook page, Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry, and we will answer your question in a post on our page. You will be anonymous. We'll just take the question and provide our input, and we want to do it on the post so that we can all learn and grow together, because nobody knows everything. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We want to remind you that we'll be here every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, following the golden rule. Have a plan, but always be willing to be flexible. Don't forget to connect with us using the links in the show notes below.
If you learned something new today, had an aha, or walked away with a valuable nugget, you can say thanks by leaving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on.